Hello, my name is Sean Sands. This is Path of Exile. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about my thoughts on the first week of the new Synthesis League, which is ending. Well, I mean, it's not ending tomorrow. The first week is ending tomorrow. We're here on Thursday, a week out. And to just contextualize that a bit, and I think there's a lot of opinion out there. I want to take this from sort of the mid-tier level sort of player perspective, because I think there's a distinction between that and like the top tier players, the players who are really pushing, racing up for level 100. Just to kind of set things up a little bit, I am on my second build and my second mapping character of the league. So I leveled my first character up to 70, which was a Bane Soulrend Trickster. So really unique build, super unique. Nobody else was doing those. And it was very powerful, very good, and I was making progress. And it was one of those builds where something I just wasn't feeling it for absolutely no good reason at all. So a few days ago, I took the earnings I made from that, and I've gone with the other side of the equation, and I made myself a occultist. What do you call that? God, what do you call that? Herald of Agony build. So this is a build where I had a tabula drop for me, and I've been wearing that. Have Herald of Agony attached to some minion damage, very minion damage, and then I use Quill Rain with Rain of Arrows and a couple of Curse on Hit. Projectile Weakness, I'd love to get this up to a 6 link or a similar 6 link, so I can put a couple other curses in there that take advantage of Profane Bloom out of the Occultist tree, which essentially means that my Quill Rain doesn't actually really do any damage, but it applies it sort of an AoE curse and poisons to activate the Herald of Agony and increase its strength. And then when the Herald of Agony attacks and kills something, Profane Bloom makes the whole pack explode in a very cool way. It's also a CI build, so a Chaos Inoculation build, which means we have no life, and we're up to only about 5,000 shield, because we're still pretty low on work. I'm still working with a gold rim here, so, fairly basic gear, right? Low end gear, but I'm clipping along pretty nicely at this point. I want to talk a little bit about the synthesis itself, which there are parts of it I like and parts of it I am not totally sold on. And you'll see that I haven't done a lot. I've only just gotten this level up to 70. I've been doing more maps than the synthesis stuff. It took me a while, and I had to watch a couple of videos to really understand how this map works. Now that I understand it more, I like the mechanic more, but I think the new patch today allowed it so that we can remove stuff from our limited inventory of slots that we can use here. It's still the puzzle piece of it just hasn't totally clicked for me, but I do like this idea of sort of creating these paths, and the longer the paths create, and then going to one of these memory modifiers areas. And these are very cool, so that when I hit this, the memory modifier added in blue there at the bottom, 500% increased rarity of items dropped by synthesized rare monsters, which you can see is now on all of these that were connected when I popped that. And some of them have many more, or not many more, but some others from other situations where I was able to connect up a memory modifier and go ahead and activate them. So creating interesting chains to have something like this, where we're going to have some, synthesized chests or, currency or stuff like that, and create a situation where you can boost those before you activate them it's very cool. Like I'm totally bought into it. So, for example, like up here, I know I'll probably tag this in at some point. And in fact, probably drop this here, because we'd want to connect these up. Now, they don't. The pop has to be actually activated. So, at some point before I activate these nodes, I'll need to go up and activate these. Obviously I would, because it's the only path, but there are situations where, let's say I wanted to do this memory modifier to here, and these were all connected up, but I hadn't been to them yet. They won't receive the modifier unless you've actually activated these specific maps. themselves. I like if you zoom in, you can see what the map is also. I mean, it's not actual layout of the map, but it kind of gives you a good sense of what you're up against. All that said, at the same time, right, the puzzle piece part of it, like now if I do go up this way, as soon as I hit this one, it's going to phase out, and I don't have a good replacement for it. So I'm going to go up, and this is going to drop and then decay, and as soon as I leave it, and then I'm going to have to find a replacement for that before I can get it. It's just kind of, it's finicky in a way that I don't care for, but I like the ability to have all these different modifiers on here, and if you get a good selection, it can be interesting. All that said, I haven't really gotten anything very good out of this part of Synthesis. Now, the individual, whenever Kavass shows up in individual maps, and you can kind of go to this side area and just pop a bunch of loot and then get to the end, and it all comes out very incursion like. That's awesome. Love that. It's giving me lots of great currency, lots of good stuff. I know a lot of people are really not super sold on Synthesis and the mechanics of it. I think I live somewhere in between. Go ahead and activate a map here, right? Still really low. Going ahead and switching over to a second build instead of really pushing into yellow and potentially red tier maps with my Bane. And Soulrend has definitely slowed me down, but I had a great time putting together this build, and it's pretty strong. I just switched over to CI, so I'm learning that. No, we'll do that. As you can see, got a little bit of currency to play with. Got a couple of exalts. Got some. I've probably spent 30 or 40 chaos on this at this point, mostly for picking up Soul Strike and Bated Breath and a few other leveling stuff that was very helpful. So we'll take a look, and you can kind of see how I mean, like, this is not an unusual build. It's out there. I don't think it's not really in the meta at all, but it's an interesting build, and it's fun, and I like the play style, I think, just more than I liked Soulrend, which is weird because I should have liked Soulrend. I still have the situation. So I activate them, and you see he shows up and pops it and kills everything. So activate. I'm not really shooting. That's him. That's all him doing some work. All right, so the memory
I wear the armor of a Templar, and I walk among the guards, but I am not.
Really like
to consume.
That doors automatically open in the memories. I've started to have a better sense of where to go as far as the memory stabilizer goes also. Particularly at the beginning, the thing, I mean, I think most people have probably realized this at this point, but if you haven't, hopefully this will help. It definitely seems like the decay happens in the direction of that not to go. So the decay is kind of guiding you a little bit. If you watch and you start heading in a direction, you feel like there's a lot of decay. And of course there is now, because we don't have any more modifiers. It's just breaking apart. That's probably a good indication that actually you should try and turn around if possible. I don't know. I can't verify that. I haven't read anything about it, but that is definitely my impression of how the mechanic worked. And kind of having that approach has definitely allowed me to feel like I'm getting far more of those things than it felt like I was before, when I would just pick a direction and hope for the best, because I assumed all directions were decaying at the same rate. And I don't think that's true. I think that's not how it works. But if I'm wrong, feel free to let me know. So yeah, this is a much faster build. I use Convocation to kind of because the pathing and the AI of your Herald of Chaos or Herald of Agony there, it's not always the best. And so having something in your back pocket to really pull him ahead or position him where you need him. Getting a little bit of lag too. Whoa. But he's doing some serious damage. Working through bosses pretty quickly without much trouble. Again, it's not like Bane and Herald of Agony weren't powerful either, but I like this kind of pop and go mechanic, so probably what I should spend more time. Like, I wish I had started with my initial. I want to find that other sulfite. My other my initial instinct when the league first started was to go occultist CI, even for my what would have been then a much more of a Bane build than what I ended up with. And I kind of wish I did that, because this is fun. Like, I'm having a good time with this mechanic. I just like the witch just works better for what I'm, the way I have fun. And it's an interesting thing. I heard somebody else say this recently. There's the whole point of, is synthesis good? How good is it? Is it working? And I think there's a sort of hardcore player way to look at that, which really is that efficiency. How much am I making per hour? Is it worth my time? And I think Path of Exile had a little bit of that struggle last league too, with Betrayal. Once people figured out how to game it, I think it became more popular than it felt at first. Like the risk reward for Syndicate always felt a little off to me. Ooh, lightning. I'm gonna pop that in somewhere. Well, we will. So it'll be interesting to see if people figure out synthesis in the same way that they eventually sort of figured out Betrayal. I will say, like, the Betrayal stuff is still the least interested part of it. I'm gonna do an arcade. Arcade sounds fun. All right. Oh, yeah. Okay. Hang tight. So yeah, like, there's good and bad here. I think that's true of Betrayal too. It'll be interesting to see how the next week or two shakes out, whether people kind of begin to get the whole sense of what to do with synthesizing stuff, and they find new kind of new recipes or new ways to really optimize that system. I don't know. I don't feel it yet. It feels very random to me, and it feels... The other thing I'm not loving about it is just how space intensive it is too. So if you really want to spend some time trying to synthesize stuff, you can only synthesize things that are specifically alike. So you can only synthesize 3 one-handed swords into a one-handed sword. You can't combine stuff, which means that, there are belts and gloves and two-handed axes and maces and all kinds of stuff. So if you start collecting,
first fishing trip alone
and try...
When her body finally washed ashore, it looked
Hang
as
on.
though it had been mummified for 1,000 years.
You'll never catch me.
Fish
Get caught. So there's not a lot of me. I mean, as you can see, mostly I'm just sort of setting up so my my pet can do most of the work, which I'm fine with. I like that better. I tend to like a pet build. I don't know. I know not everybody's into pet builds. I usually dig it. So my point was that having to collect all this stuff, right? I can't just take these 3 items and synthesize them. I have to go save all the armor and all the boots and all the, right? It's just like 3 or 4 different stash tabs full of stuff just to save for synthesizing. That would be great if I had yet to find a single thing. I don't think I found a single thing out of Synthesize that I even felt like I could sell for like a chaos. Right? So, is it worth it? So far, no. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Usually there is. So I don't want to assume. But yeah, I don't know. Again, we have another league where I'm having an absolute blast with a lot of the balance changes that were made, and trying my new builds and playing along and just going through the existing content in a new way with a new character, and that's great. But the actual league mechanics haven't connected with it yet. Very good. Oh, I love the way that they just melt.
Too much clutter.
So yeah, sort of my thoughts on the first week of Synthesis. Like, I'm going to keep playing. I still have my goal set out for me, which is to kill Shaper, and we'll see where we are then. I think this build is probably better suited to that. This is, there's a lot. Once we really kind of boost our energy shield, get some gear that's set up for it, and get used to the build itself, it's apparently very good at boss killing. So yeah, I'll probably check back in about a week if I'm still playing. We'll see what I think then, see how far I've gotten. Right, like I said, I think I'd be way farther in my mapping and my leveling if I hadn't gotten halfway through the week and thought, nah. But, that's half the fun of Path of Exile, as long as you're not trying to be super efficient, which I'm not. Anyway, until next time, let me know what you think if you're enjoying the league, if you're playing the game, and we will see you again real soon.